With Auburn likely to make a big offer to Gus Malzahn, the Auburn Tigers may only be able to do one thing to be able to keep their coach: pay up. We'll talk about it next on AT&T SEC Country Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to AT&T SEC Country Live. My name is Brandon Adams. This is Mike Johnson, former Alabama All-American. We got a lot on the Tennessee coaching search. It takes more twists and turns today. We'll deal with the SEC championship between Georgia and Auburn. We got a lot coming up. But before we get to action on the field, or where we seem to have started every day this week with the Tennessee coaching search, can we deal with something off the top of the show here? Maybe a version of breaking news, if you will, about the Auburn situation here. It comes from Football Scoop. Before we get into our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10, the stuff we planned on talking about today, let's talk about this here just for a moment. This is coming from footballscoop.com, saying in response to Arkansas's interest in Auburn having a good 10-2 season, sources have told Football Scoop that Gus Malzahn's camp has presented a package to Auburn President Stephen Leaf to keep him in blue and orange. And Football Scoop writes, "Our understanding is the ask is substantial. It's hard to imagine Auburn letting Malzahn walk away at this point." So if you're an Auburn fan, how do you read this here? You knew that these Arkansas rumors were still out there. There was even a report from an Arkansas TV reporter as recently as yesterday that he was hearing from some folks that Malzahn may still go to Arkansas after his team won the Iron Bowl on Saturday. But if Malzahn's presenting an offer to Auburn, that means he'd like to stay on the Plains. So if you're an Auburn fan, you take this as good or bad news.
Well, I think it's good news because I think what you have here is probably a coach that really wants to stay. I think that Gus Malzahn wants to get this done. Right now, he's got the number 2 team in the country when you look at the rankings. I think he wants to be paid like a coach that in his 5th year has the number 2 team in the country. I think that's fair. When you look at Gus Malzahn, when you look at really the boosters at Arkansas kind of taking over the program, kind of oustering Jeff Long, getting rid of Brett Bielema, all of a sudden they move into a position where, hey, a guy like Gus Malzahn now, even so much as 2 weeks ago, now he looks 10 times better than he even did. And so if you got those Arkansas boosters that are ready to come up off their pocketbook, sounds like Auburn guys are going to have to do the same thing, and that's good for Malzahn because he is getting ready to sit on a load of cash.
Faye McGuire says money talks. That's what this comes down to. It's money. Yeah. It's not just the money it requires to keep Malzahn, but it's the money you invest in your program going forward. Here's the thing I'd be concerned about. It wasn't that long ago that a lot of the Auburn people in our comment section right now, and I'll read some more of these comments in a moment, a lot of the Auburn people in our comment section right now who are saying, you got to do whatever you can do to keep Gus Malzahn. Right. Not that long ago after the LSU game, they were wondering maybe we need to find a better coach for Auburn than Gus Malzahn. So now, with a lame duck athletic director, you're going to sign a long extension for a coach that not that many weeks ago you weren't even sure you wanted to keep. Is that a good investment in the future?
I think it is. And listen, I've had more knocks on the show on Gus Malzahn than anybody. I've questioned what Gus Malzahn was, but I think when you see the last few weeks and what he's been able to do with this team and the future they're building, when you look at the recruiting, that recruiting class is getting awful strong. They look like a program that is really building towards something. Guess what you don't want to do? You don't want to start over. You don't want Gus Malzahn to head to one of your in-division rivals up there at Arkansas and decide that you have to start over from scratch, build a new offense, build a new defense without Kevin Steele. I think it's a substantial, newsworthy topic that Arkansas is giving him such consideration. But in the end, I don't believe Gus Malzahn's going anywhere. I think he wants to stay right where in the program that he's built at Auburn, and I think he'll get a substantial stay raise to do just that.
Well, let me fly through some of these comments. John Thompson Lawrence says Auburn's treated Gus Malzahn like poop emoji. Do you think that he's been treated poorly there at Auburn?
Well, I think it is interesting to look back, not only this year, but when you look back at last year, and we've brought this up a couple of times, when you look at that LSU-Auburn game, you wondered if the losing coach didn't get fired. Look how those two coaches have taken an absolute just opposite trajectory. Les Miles can't find a job. He gets fired after that game because of 1 second. And now all of a sudden Gus Malzahn's looking at possibly getting in the college football playoff here in the next year.
In the comment section, Kerry Thatch says, why would Gus want to downgrade? There's no denying that Arkansas, the pecking order of the SEC, is below Auburn. My assumption's been, if we want to go back to what the other commenter said, that maybe he feels mistreated by Auburn. You just kind of want to get away from that. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit like the Jimbo Fisher situation at Florida State, where you just can't win enough. You can meet expectations, but you can never exceed them.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at reasons why he might jump, if you can make the same amount of money and have 10 times better job security, then guess what? You're going back home to Arkansas. I mean, that's the the kind of the risk reward you look at in this entire situation. I just don't think with the team he has and the team he's built that he's willing to walk away from.
Ben Taylor says Gus is 10-2 in season 5. I say open the purse and pay the man. Yeah. Here's the thing too. It's not just for me the record this season that makes Malzahn the kind of guy you're probably going to have to pay up. Even if it's not a great long-term investment, you still got to pay it. It's not just because of the 10-2 season, but if you go back and look here. last summer, the most recent summer, we were talking about Alabama domination of the SEC West. But with one win for Malzahn against Alabama this season, he's now 2-3 against Alabama since 2013 when he took over as Auburn head coach. If he were to win next year, he's 500. He and Saban have split their games against each other, and all of a sudden, the Alabama dominance in the SEC West, that narrative has completely gone away at that point.
Yeah, it definitely has. I think another thing to add in that corner, when you look around the SEC right now, guess who doesn't want to enter into the trying to find a coach ranks right now? I think any amount of money that Gus Malzahn is asking right now, you're willing to pay that. When you look at what's happening at Tennessee, what's potentially happening at Arkansas, you look at Florida State, who might be looking for a coach, Texas A&M trying to lure Jimbo Fisher, Florida finally gets their guy. You don't want to get into all that scrum right now. If you have to pay an extra $1 million a year, $2 million a year, I guarantee you people at Auburn are willing to do that.
All right, so I'm scrolling through these comments. I'm seeing over and over again, like Rhonda Palazzo here, or Palazzolo here, who says he belongs with us at Auburn. A lot of examples of folks like Rhonda who want Malzahn to stay. But if we did the same show again on, like, say, Sunday morning after the SEC championship, let's say Auburn lost, is there a way that some of this sort of twists and turns back in the negative direction for Malzahn after this weekend? I mean, everybody feels great right now because you just beat Alabama. But Auburn is sort of a short-term program. They tire of coaches there pretty quickly. Yeah. Is some of the positive votes of confidence that Malzahn's getting right now, does some of that disappear if they lose to Georgia on Saturday?
I don't think anybody's going to change your opinion in a span of a few days. I think if you feel like he was on edge right now and you feel like maybe he got lucky in the last two games, then you already felt that way going in. I've had the question about Malzahn all season, and he has exceeded my expectations by far. But I'm still not willing to sweep under the rug the fact that he lost to LSU when he shouldn't have, and how bad they looked against Clemson. If his team's that good, and this team is very good, then what's the excuse for those earlier losses?
See, I think Malzahn may want to sign this contract before Saturday.
Maybe so. Maybe so. And listen, I think Auburn has every right to feel like they're the team that is leading going into this game, and they're going to be favored in this game. And I think that there is the potential for a little bit of a letdown from the feeling from the fans if they're not able to go back-to-back against Georgia in this game.
All right, let's talk about Tennessee here for a moment. And before I do, I'll remind you that AT&T is a proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make the switch to AT&T Wireless Direct TV. They'll help you stay connected all season long. And the way we planned on starting our show is, as I said a moment ago, the way we've started it all week long, with more news but another coach not wanting to come to Tennessee. Item number one on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list, the latest name to do that apparently is Dave Doeren, the North Carolina State coach. Here's one of many tweets from some of the Blue Check Brigade national media folks about this. This time Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports, who says, source, Dave Doeren is staying at NC State. So Tennessee search moves on. I mean, if you get turned down by boring Dave Doeren, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's tough. And listen, I said this earlier, and we were talking amongst ourselves about it. To me, John Curry, doesn't he need to take like a 48-hour hiatus? Just grab your breath back, wait till Sunday, wait till all the championship game fallout, see what happens with Jimbo Fisher, see what happens with Kevin Sumlin, see what other coaches become available, and then move on from there. I feel like he got hung up in Sunday was so bad for this program. It's like, how fast can we get a good coach into place? Well, guess what? Dave Doeren's not a very good coach. And so I think that your suspense and trying to get this whole deal over with and make yourself look better and save face as the AD up in Knoxville, it's not working right now. Take a breather. Spend 48 hours. Now the report is that they're going after Kevin Sumlin. Well, guess what? So would Florida State if Jimbo Fisher lands at Texas A&M. That leaves more egg on their face. And right now, John Curry has absolutely no leverage. Every coach that he's talking to and every athletic department he's trying to steal from knows that Tennessee has no leverage in these talks.
Well, listen, here is the spot I've tried to occupy since the Greg Schiano disaster from Sunday. I've tried to sort of argue what I believe is the other side of most of the mainstream media, that this is the worst coaching search in modern college football history. I've tried to occupy the other side of that because, frankly, it's too crowded on the let's criticize Tennessee for how bad this has gone. Yeah. And I've tried to hold out the belief that, you know what, sometimes your fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh choice, sometimes it turns out to be the right choice. There are examples of that. I'm almost positive in the past history of college football. But the element of the Dave Doeren thing that makes Tennessee look so bad here, from someone who's trying to find the positive, the silver lining for the Vols, the element that makes it look so bad is there was a report, and I forget who had it. All this stuff runs together after a while, so media source, I apologize for not remembering who you are. Somebody said that Doeren thought he was getting the Ole Miss job, took his coaches off the recruiting trail so they could all tell him together in Raleigh, hey, we're going to Oxford, Mississippi. We're going to resurrect Ole Miss. And then Luke wins the Egg Bowl. All of a sudden, they decided to give him the job, and now Dave Doeren's not going to Ole Miss. So you got a guy in Doeren who, if you believe these reports, and why would we not, You got a guy in Doran who said, I would have taken Ole Miss. I'm not taking Tennessee. All of a sudden, Ole Miss is a better job than Tennessee?
Yeah.
Is that how quickly all this has kind of gone wrong here?
I guess so. I mean, Ole Miss, to me, would have been one of the worst job openings in the country if that had come open. When you look at all the sanctions, everything that's gone on there, the fact that, all the injuries they've been dealing with this year and everything else, and for Dave Doran to think he's getting that job and then turn down Tennessee is a bad look. That goes back to my point, though. If you're John Currie, if you're part of this Tennessee administration, take a couple of days. There doesn't have to be one name flying out right after another name denies you. And I know that's not how it works. You have sources out there. You have people leaking information. But there obviously is a trend. There's obviously a ton of coaches you've already run through that want to deny that they're taking this job or turn down the job and get themselves a pay raise. And it's been $1 million here, $2 million here. Dave Doran going to get a contract extension probably at NC State. Mike Gundy's getting paid a couple more $1 million. Take some time, man. Wait till the weekend. Wait till the championship's game over. Maybe make a run at Kevin Steele or Brent Venables or somebody else that's maybe coaching this weekend.
You can't hire Kevin Steele.
Well, you definitely can. I mean,
if
you can hire Dave Doran, you can hire Kevin Steele. I mean, what we're kind of splitting hairs at this point.
It wasn't that long ago that listen, I'll be the first to tell you, Kevin Steele's been a great defensive coordinator at Auburn, but it wasn't that long ago he wasn't even thought of as a good DC.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, Kevin Steele to me, if you're going to hire Dave Doran, I don't see why the knock on Kevin Steele. I mean, beggars can't be choosers.
I've seen so many people on social media saying this. I mean, Dave Doran is essentially the Butch Jones of the ACC.
Well, and he probably is. And listen, here's the thing. Here's the way I look at it. Mississippi State, they go get Moorhead and they go ahead and plug him in, and everybody at Mississippi State is paying attention to Moorhead. What has he done? He's already gotten in there. He's gotten the recruiting starting. Everybody's not paying attention to you anymore. Tennessee needs a head coach, and Kevin Steele would be a guy that would take that job. Maybe Jeremy Pruitt. I don't know. I'm just saying wait till after the week.
Greg Steele says the most positive thing Tennessee could do right now is hire an alum like T. Martin, the USC offensive coordinator. I mean, it's almost like, can you do that to T. Martin?
I said that yesterday.
Because, he's a young coach. He'd like to have a career at this thing. I mean, if Tennessee kind of throws him in a no-win situation, then they've essentially taken their national championship quarterback and they have treated him like poop emoji, like the guy said before. That's treating you like poop emoji, putting you in a situation where you can't win and, your 19th choice. I mean, in a weird way, T. Martin's stature as a coach is almost higher if he doesn't take the head coaching job. Because if he takes it, he's like the 9th choice, and he sort of proves he's a guy that's sort of willing to sort of dish out what anybody takes. I mean, there's a certain extent to which T. Martin probably shouldn't accept this job now.
I do kind of feel that way where I'm like, if I'm T. Martin right now and John Currie calls me, I'm loading up the phone and I'm laughing in this guy's face. I mean, there's no way. But at the same time, and I tweeted this out earlier today, isn't there a feeling like this job went from a good job to a bad job and now good again? Because anybody who takes this job, they're going to be a hero. They're going to have a statue sitting outside the stadium the minute they sign on the dotted line. And right now, I don't know who it's going to be, but I think they're going to be a cult hero once they show up in Knoxville for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll keep taking your comments in the comment section on this today here on AT&T SEC Country Live. Let me move on to item number 2 here for a moment. Get back to the action on the field with the SEC Championship on Saturday. Gus Malzahn's Auburn team, Gus we talked about before, going into the neutral site venue of Jordan-Hare Stadium. And at least one pretty high-profile guy is wondering how Auburn's going to play away from home. Gary Danielson, the CBS color analyst, participated in a conference call, a lot of media members covering the championship game, and he had this to say about Auburn. Let me show you this on the screen so you can see it. Danielson says, Auburn has proved they're an elite team at home. I don't know if they've proved to me they're elite away from Jordan-Hare. And by the way, all these media folks saying Jordan-Hare. Can we show some respect here for Shook Jordan and say Jordan-Hare?
I've said Jordan all week.
I know
the right way. I know the right way.
Why are you going to take everything so personal?
No, I'm not. I feel like I'm the Alabama guy, so I get targeted by the Auburn people. I say Jordan, too. I have respect for it.
No, I'm a Georgia guy. I'll even give you your proper pronunciation for your coach there. But nonetheless, do you think that Auburn should be worried about not playing in front of the rabid crowd of Jordan-Hare on Saturday?
Well, I think they definitely should. I mean, when you look at the couple of games they've lost this year, they have been in raucous, away environments. And here's the thing. I don't want to feel like I'm taking away from Auburn because they played an extremely good game against Georgia the first time. And they deserve credit for winning that game, home or away. I mean, when you look at the rushing yards, I think we're talking 237 to 46. Those rushing yards are probably the same at a neutral site or on the road as they were at home. That's your offensive line. That's your defensive line doing some great things. But I do think it has to be a concern for theirs how they've played when they're not at home. I think that defensive line plays at a higher level. I don't know if it knocks the offense from Auburn right now. I think they're playing at an extremely high level. You've mentioned, and I got to give you credit going back all the way to the beginning of the season, Jared Stidham, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, he has panned out that way. His accuracy on third down has been great. I think you take the run game into effect and think it probably stays the same, but Does that help out Jake Fromm a little bit? Maybe being able to escape the pocket. Maybe that defensive line doesn't have as good a get off. I think that's what Gary Danielson's getting at.
So I think there is a chance that Auburn probably is inferior away from Jordan-Hare Stadium. That's maybe true for a lot of college football teams. But here's what I am concerned about a little bit, and I say this as a person. You can look at my shirt and see what I'm wearing today. You kind of know where my allegiance lies for the SEC championship. Here's the one thing that concerns me. Auburn's the number 2 team in the country, and I think it's a possibility they're still underrated.
Yeah.
There's still this sense of, can they do it away from Jordan-Hare Stadium? Can they do it if Kerryon Johnson's not completely 100%? You mentioned Jared Stidham. I've been on Stidham since before the start of the season. I think as an individual player, I think Stidham's still underrated. I don't think people give him credit for the numbers that he's putting up right now. I mean, I think that Auburn is one of those national championship contenders that probably gets even less credit than it should, even coming off a victory that's typically the ultimate stamp of approval, beating Alabama. It's almost as if Auburn's still underrated.
Well, and listen, I agree with you. I think that they're a great team. Their ceiling is through the roof, by the way. When you look at the talent on both these lines of scrimmage, in the backfield, in the secondary linebacker, they are a whole team. But I think the problem you have on the national landscape is this is still a 2-loss team. I mean, the bad has been very bad for Auburn, and I think that's why it's fair to kind of poke holes and ask questions. But I agree with you. I've said all week that I'm kind of leaning to Georgia. I mean, by like 1 point leaning to Georgia right now, because I think you get in that atmosphere, you get hyped up. I think Georgia has a ton of talent. I think Kirby Smart's a great game planner. But when you do go back and break down the stats from that game a few weeks ago, total yardage 488 to 230. I mean, is a neutral site game that big a deal where you can overcome 250 yards of offense? I don't know. I think it has to be a game that Georgia has to get some special teams plays against Auburn and possibly make a field goal at the end.
Here's the thing I'd love to hear from some Auburn fans. We've had a lot of Auburn fans watching us this week, as you might imagine. Do you think that Georgia, whether you think your team's going to win or not, my assumption is most of you probably do, and I think with good reason. Auburn's a very good team. Do you think that Georgia's likely to keep it close with Auburn this time compared to the blowout loss from early November? I mean, that's the thing I'm sort of curious about on Auburn fans. Listen, I talk to Georgia fans every day. I do Dog Nation daily on dognation.com, iTunes. It's the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. I mean, the Georgia folks are convinced they're keeping it close on Saturday. And most of them think they're going to probably win the rematch. But at the very least, there is no Georgia fan who says, we ain't got no shot at Auburn coming off what happened a few weeks ago. That is not what Georgia fans are saying right now. I wonder if Auburn fans think it's also going to be close.
Yeah, the sense I've gotten talking to a lot of them, they do think it's a little bit close. And listen, when you look at the first half from that game a couple of weeks ago, it was a pretty close game. I mean, Georgia marches right down the field and punches it in there on the first drive. And then all of a sudden, Auburn settles for like 3 field goals until you get like 2 minutes before halftime, and then they have that long pass, and then they jump up by a lot of points. I think that first half was very indicative of how you could see this game going. Obviously, Auburn runs away with it in the second half, but that first half was a little bit more indicative of how the matchup will play out.
All right, I got a few of these comments coming in, and let me fly through a few of these. And then I want to talk about a very interesting situation involving the University of Alabama. James Duke says it will be close, WDE. Rosalind Isbell says it will be close, but we win, WDE. Randy Grimes says, I think it will be close, but our line on both sides of the ball is going to be better. So you're seeing some Auburn fans who think it will be closer. Jeffrey Payne just still wants to argue about what happened in the third down play when Nick Saban accused the Auburn players of clapping to mess up Jalen Hurts' snap count. They're still arguing about that. That strange sequence there late in the game in the Iron Bowl. That's what Jeffrey Payne's bringing up.
A lot of people in Tuscaloosa still mad about that. I mean, it's a sore topic amongst Bama fans right now. And I understand why. I mean, when you talk about a big game, but as an Alabama guy watching that game, that's something you have to be prepared for. So, listen, the same things happen. You have defense lines that bark out the cadence. You do have that on field goal. It's something you got to be prepared for.
By the way, this is not what we plan on talking about, but you mentioned people in Tuscaloosa still upset. That's to be expected at the Iron Bowl. So is Jalen Hurts going to wear this Auburn jersey or what?
I don't know, and I hope not. I haven't even brought it up. I haven't tweeted about it.
Barkley's what I'm talking about. Y'all remember that, right?
No, I know. Listen, I remember. I don't want to bring it up because I don't want it to happen.
I told you it's a bad idea.
I know.
I
agreed with you before it happened. I said, man, if Jalen has to wear that jersey across the quad, I'm going to be sick to my stomach.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm going to be chanting Tua come spring ball.
Barkley plays a clown on TV. Anything that he can do is going to be fine. But Jalen Hurts is your quarterback, man.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to watch, man. It's going to be tough to stomach.
Speaking of Alabama, I actually think it's pretty interesting. I'm number 3 in our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So obviously the College Football Playoff Selection Committee Chairman Kirby Hocutt does a lot of media stuff after each week's College Football Playoff rankings come out. And people try to parse his words, try to really listen closely to what he says to see if he gives away any clue about how the final four ranking might go and who's actually going to be in the playoff. This is probably especially true for a lot of Alabama fans right now because they need some help to be in the playoff, but they think they're still alive. So here is something that Kirby Hocutt said about this week's rankings. Alabama at number 5, Ohio State all the way down there at number 8. But listen to the word that Hocutt uses to describe the difference between the Crimson Tide and the Buckeyes. Take a listen.
Reflecting on the discussions over the last 2 days, obviously there's 3 spots that separate them right there, but it's close separation from team number 5 Alabama, 6 Georgia, 7 Miami, 8 Ohio State. Those teams are close. Very little separation in the committee's eyes between teams 5 through 8.
So close separation between Alabama, the team we talk about here in SEC country, Ohio State, the team that most of our audience, no matter who you cheer for in the SEC, hate out of the Big Ten. Kirby Hocutt says close separation between those two. Well, Ryan Fowler, who does a great job doing our Alabama podcast for SECcountry.com, upon hearing that phrase, close separation, he thought that was an alarming description. And here's what he said about that on a recent Alabama podcast. Listen.
I don't like reading things into comments. I like looking back. I tried to look at the written side of it. I tried to listen to the audio. But when he made the comments about little separation between 5 through 8, Alabama, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, in my opinion, I hope you guys can tell me, hey, Ryan, you're an idiot. Because I'd love to be able to eat this crow, talking about it if Alabama gets in. But you look at it and you hear him talking about little separation. When he makes the comment, little separation between Alabama and Ohio State, 5 through 8, to me that tells me that they're setting it up. If Ohio State wins, then they'll put them in the college football playoffs.
I think Ryan brings up a really interesting point there, that if the team Alabama, which is ranked above right now, is only sort of a small distance ahead of a team like Ohio State, and Ohio State were to beat a team like Wisconsin, I mean, based on what Hocutt says there, if you take him at his word, how would Ohio State not leap ahead of Alabama on the basis of that win? I think that Ryan Fowler is actually on to something right there, that close separation does sound like bad news for Alabama fans. I think Hocutt's description there is not a thing you want to, as a Tide fan, you want to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting little tidbit when you talk about kind of trying to compare the two teams. It actually leads me to believe that they're going to probably look at margin of victory this weekend when Ohio State faces off against Wisconsin. If Ohio State wins on like a late field goal, then I think that maybe Alabama slips in there. But the longer we get in this weekend, the less confident I am in the committee that they're going to put Alabama in after this weekend. I think Ohio State with 2 losses, 31 points to Iowa. Listen, I saw this stat on Twitter earlier today. Alabama's senior class, the last 4 years, combined margin of loss, 28 points to and the 31-point margin of victory against Iowa for Ohio State earlier this year. I can't see it happening. When you look at how Ohio State got in last year, it's hard for me to really swallow that. Another takeaway I had from that BA is how many times we talked about USC. He did not mention USC in that 5 through 8 conversation. Kirby Hocutt did not. I mean, USC's sitting there at 10 right now. Yeah. It leads me to believe that Ohio State and Alabama both in over a USC.
Well, the fairness there, though, the question was about 5 through 8.
I understand it was. I'm just saying that if he's saying that 5 through 8 are that close and 10 right now is USC, I think they're on the outside.
I think that's true. I think you're right about that. That you probably need some extra help. You need an Oklahoma losing or something like that to get a USC involved in this conversation.
Yeah, and you need TCU to knock it off. You need a lot of craziness, and that's what college football has given us, is a lot of craziness. But I have to admit, I mean, Monday I thought the chances of Alabama getting in, not playing this weekend, were still relatively good. As we've moved along throughout the week, you hear parties from both sides. Ohio State, to me, just seems like a team that is going to get the benefit of the doubt this weekend.
I saw a comment. I want to try to see if I can scroll back down and get it. Jamie Bailey was the guy who said it, and Jamie's a Georgia fan. So you got to understand, this is a Georgia fan talking about the situation in the playoff. He says, Ohio State has 2 horrible losses. It would be madness again. I don't think he's arguing about his own team getting in because Georgia can punch its ticket with a win. He's talking about the Alabama situation there. And Jamie's sort of, I think, representative of a lot of SEC fans who are like, how are you even going to explain this?
Yeah.
And, it's the same problem, if there was a Big Ten country live, it'd be the same problem there from their perspective with Alabama. Yeah. Alabama doesn't even win its division. They just get the benefit of the doubt every single year because they think that way about Alabama the way a lot of SEC fans think about Ohio State. This is such a tough job. I mean, the numbers really are pretty close on Alabama and Ohio State, despite the fact that Alabama has 1 fewer loss. But when they don't play the same schedule, I'm not sure how much that means. Whatever. the tough challenge here is not picking the right choice because half the country's going to think you got it wrong. It's how you explain it that's going to be so tough.
It's going to be very tough. I'm telling you right now, I don't think there's a right way to do it. I think it's kind of a 50-50 toss-up. I think, listen, and I was on Twitter today. I was kind of cruising through and thinking, you know who's really mad about this if Ohio State gets in? Penn State fans. Penn State fans are irate at the thought that Ohio State could jump them last year, and all of a sudden they're going to get in this year with 2 losses. All the rage last year was how Penn State lost by 39 to Michigan, a 10-2 Michigan squad. And yet Iowa's going to beat Ohio State this year by 31, and Ohio State's still maybe getting the benefit of the doubt. Listen, I don't admire Kirby Hocutt at all. Yeah. I know he's got a tough decision ahead of him. If Alabama's out, if Alabama's in, I don't admire him either way. I don't think there's a right decision to make.
Ryan Wright says, if Ohio gets in, I quit football, by the way, using the Les Miles term of calling him Ohio. Jeremy Pettis says, Ohio State got in the playoffs last year, and Ohio State got steamrolled by Clemson in the playoffs. Yeah. And listen, all of that is definitely sort of an argument against Ohio State in the court of public opinion, but I don't think that's the way these deliberations work. I have a very cynical view of this college football playoff selection committee, and I do think this committee is going to do what it wants to do, and I think it's just going to sort of brace itself from the criticism that comes from a lot of our fans here around SEC country, and it's just going to be the way that it is.
Yeah, it's tough. And honestly, I'm just wondering, I'm looking at other scenarios right now because, rarely do things play out in college football the way you think they're going to. I mean, I'm sitting there wondering, is Kirby Hocutt going to take a look at maybe a 2-loss Clemson team if Miami beats them this weekend? Would that be a possibility? I mean, do you look other directions if you're the committee to try to get out from making a decision between Ohio State and Alabama?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I don't think that Miami can get in the playoff no matter. First of all, I don't think they're going to beat Clemson. And if they lose, I don't think they're deserving, nor do I think they'll get in. But I understand where you're going with this. Because normally, here's what we say, and the national media loves saying this all the time, that, the debate about college football is what makes it such a great sport. But this is a debate where you can make a case that Alabama and Ohio State are the 2 biggest fan bases in all college football. You can make a case they're just the 2 giant behemoths in the sport. So is it a great debate when either one of 2 of the biggest fan bases in college football are this angry? Is this potentially a decision that hurts the sport somehow? Does it hurt the credibility of the playoff if you can't really explain why you chose Ohio State over Alabama or why you chose Alabama over Ohio State? Normally the debate is good, but is this a debate that's so intense between 2 really big-time blue blood powers? Is it such a big debate that it's almost bad for the sport?
I think it has to be, and I think it kind of starts to point, and I hate to even say this because I am not a proponent of this, but I think it starts to point towards an 8-team playoff where you get the 5 conference champions in and then a group of 5 team and then 2 kind of wild cards. I think that's the only way you start to solve this thing. And I think it's a bad look either way. If you had to decide between Ohio State and Alabama after this weekend and Ohio State wins, I don't think there's a right decision. I'd honestly, if I'm Kirby Hocutt, I'm looking at trying to find another team to kind of stick in there.
Starkville Aquarium says it really all comes down to money. Which teams will make them the most money are going to be in. And Starkville, I got to tell you, that is 100% what I believe. And I don't mean to be, so cynical and so kind of, whatever about this process. But for me, it's all about money. It's a made-for-TV show. And Ohio State, assuming it's Clemson and it's either Alabama or Georgia, Ohio State is more profitable. It's better business than Alabama because you get more of the country involved. And that's ultimately why I think the Buckeyes get the nod there, even with the 2 losses.
It might be true. I think that if you look at Alabama fans and their proximity to the Sugar Bowl, which is where they'd be playing, I think the argument can be made that the fans are traveling in herds down there from Tuscaloosa to New Orleans. But I understand that. And listen, if I'm Kirby Hocutt, like I was just saying, I am wearing Wisconsin gear from head to toe this weekend. I mean, I am rooting Wisconsin on so bad because it's just like I just said, I don't think there's a right choice in that scenario.
So Florida fans, we'll tell you about what's happening in your pursuit of 5-star quarterback Justin Fields in just a moment. Before that, though, let me remind you that my name is Brandon Adams. That's Mike Johnson, the former Alabama All-American. It's good to have you with us here on AT&T SEC Country Live. AT&T, proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Make the switch to AT&T Wireless and DirecTV. They'll help you stay connected all season long. And by the way, coming up tomorrow, I am so excited about this. 7 p.m. tomorrow, Hooters downtown Atlanta. Atlanta is our home base here for AT&T SEC Country Live, and we're excited about the big game here on Saturday and excited about previewing with you 7 p.m. If you live too far away from Atlanta to be here, we'll do it with you at 7 p.m. on the SEC Country Facebook page like always, or like we normally come to you at. We don't usually deliver on Fridays, but we'll be there. We'd love to have you come by and see us at the Hooters in downtown Atlanta, 7 p.m. If you're an Auburn fan, if you're a Georgia fan, if you just live near Atlanta, let us shake your hand and say thanks for watching AT&T SEC Country Live every day. And by the way, also very special thanks to Hooters, who've got a great offer right right now. You can get $5 off your to-go order of $25 or more, but it's online to-go only, and you must use the promo code SECFans. Use that promo code SECFans. You can get $5 off your to-go order of $25 or more when you order online. All right, item number 4, AT&T SEC Country Live, 1st and 10. Justin Fields, the 5-star quarterback, #1 player in the country. One of the first acts of Dan Mullen's tenure as Florida head coach was to go visit Justin Fields in Kennesaw, Georgia, in Fields' hometown. Got a lot of Florida fans excited. It was a great debate in our comment section earlier this week between Florida fans who think that Mullen's going to be able to flip Fields and Georgia fans who think that Georgia's going to be able to hold on to him. Well, there has been a Georgia response to the, or at least it seems that way.
Has, yeah.
It seems a Georgia response to the Mullen visit. Take a look at this picture that Justin Fields posted on Twitter. You see him there in a well-appointed house, a nice Christmas tree, and standing in front of that tree is Fields and a guy that people outside the Georgia fan base may not recognize. That's Dale McGee, a Georgia assistant. And Justin Fields says, I had a great time with Dale McGee tonight. Definitely the best recruiter in the country. So Fields calling McGee the best recruiter in the country, you read anything into that between the Florida-Georgia battle for Fields here, if there indeed is one?
I actually don't read that much into that particular tweet. Now, I understand Justin Fields is still a lean to Georgia. He's from Georgia. He probably would love to go to Georgia. But when I look at that, it almost sounds to me like, and this is how recruiting goes nowadays, it's almost like this guy is a friend of Justin Fields. You know what I mean? I look at what Dale McGee is probably trying to buddy up to Justin Fields, and they feel like they're friends now, and he puts it out, this is my boy. You know, this is the best recruiter in the country. I got to tell you, B.A., I have looked at this situation over and over again, and I'm just not shocked if Justin Fields decides to go to Florida. I think there's so many good scenarios for him down at Florida right now that might not be possible there in year 1 or year 2 when you look at Georgia. And I know that a lot of people, you guys talk about it on the podcast. I've listened to Jeff Sintel. He thinks, and I still think too, I still think he's a Georgia lean. But I don't think it's that much of a runaway. I really don't. I would call it 60-40 in my opinion of where he should go. Now, he's going to have relationships at Georgia. He's just now getting to know Dan Mullen. There's going to be a lot of decision makes. But if I'm Justin Fields, I'm taking a long, hard look at Gainesville right now.
So one of the things I thought was interesting this week is Kirby Smart, in the midst of talking about his SEC championship preparation, was asked by his quarterback, Jake Fromm, a freshman that flipped himself from Alabama to Georgia for the class of 2017. In the midst of Smart talking about Fromm, he said some things that could be really applicable to the Justin Fields discussion this week. Take a listen. This is from Kirby Smart this week. It's about Fromm, but couldn't it work for Fields as well?
These kids can change their mind at any time. So, when they tell you they're coming, sometimes you have to keep recruiting them the whole time because things change, circumstances change, kids change their mind from time to time.
I take that as a subtle message from Smart to Fields that, hey, even though we're busy with the SEC championship prep, we still notice you. We're still all about you. We're going to keep showing you as much love and maintaining you call it a friendship relationship. Sometimes these relationships do feel like friendships. We're going to maintain that relationship. We're going to lean on that as leverage, and we're going to show you why you're still the best. We're still the best home for you, despite the sort of fly-by-night approach by the new Florida coach.
Yeah, and I call it a fly-by-night approach. I mean, he just gets there. He's trying to make a big splash on the recruiting scene. Florida is always going to be a recruiting power for forever. I mean, they have that recruiting base in their background. I look at the situation, and here's how I look at it. Jake Fromm is a guy that you could see being the starter for the next 3 years of Georgia. I don't know if he will. I know they would love to get away from that particular system. Maybe you want Jim Chady to go to a dual-threat quarterback system. But I look at Dan Mullen, his history of working with the quarterbacks, kind of some of the talent base they're going to have on that roster, the speed all over the field. I think there's a pretty high ceiling for Justin Fields if he decided to go play for Dan Mullen.
All right, let's do item number 5 here in our AT&T SEC Country Live 1st and 10. Let me get back to these Tennessee rumors here for a moment. We talked earlier in the show about Dave Doeren turning the job down, and obviously the pressure here getting intense when it comes to Tennessee Athletic Director John Currie. Let me show you an example of that. Last night, Vols playing at Thompson Bowling Arena, and much like the Monday Night Raw crowd was chanting "Fire Curry" the other night, the Tennessee basketball fans getting in on the same thing. Take a look. We also know that in the midst of all that, now we don't know why this guy was messing with police, but there was some online stuff that some of the Fire Curry, some of the protest stuff might have gotten one guy in some hot water with the police. Here's also some other video that's there. And so we don't know for sure what caused this to happen, but not a good look at a night where an athletic director is being chanted to have him fired. Police are arresting one Tennessee fan there, and you really get the sense that all of this just kind of boiling over here a little bit for John Currie. if you can't go to a basketball game without hearing chants to have the AD fired, I don't know how the AD keeps his job.
We've been saying it all week. I don't know how he keeps his job regardless. And honestly, you know what I'm going to probably say about this, the basketball game. I don't like the fact that these chants are going on at a basketball game. I feel like you have to cheer on the basketball team while you're there, leave the football stuff across the hallway, whatever. Let's move on to the next topic. John Curry has to be fired, right? I mean, we got to get
Hold on, come on now, don't move off that so quick. You're not going to let these Tennessee people express themselves. I mean, they don't have an AT&T.
You know me. You know my background. It's all about the players that are on the court. They're doing their best at the time. They don't want to look up in the stands while they're busting their butt and try to get a non-conference win and here fire John Curry.
Okay, so I get that coming from a former player.
Listen, we've been pro-Tennessee all week. Both you and I have been pro-Tennessee.
I'm not saying you're being anti-Tennessee. You're being pro-player right now.
Yeah.
And I understand your perspective on that because I know it stinks to be a player on the field and have the people not paying attention to you. But, you know, football is bigger than basketball, Tennessee. I hate to tell you that. And these Tennessee people, this is their moment to sort of express themselves. They don't have these kinds of outlets. They can't look into a camera. They don't have microphones. It's these basketball venues when they congregate together, or Monday Night Raw when they congregate together. That's when they have a chance to do this stuff. I'm not going to fault them for doing that right there.
Well, I just wish it had been taken on somewhere. I understand there's not any football games right now, not for Tennessee, not for quite some time. We're going to have to get the next season for that. But I just hate the fact that it happened during the basketball game. I'm not bashing Tennessee fans for it. I understand why it happened. I'm just saying I wish there had been a different approach taken.
While we're in the midst of this discussion, by the way, all of this stems from the way the Greg Schiano thing was handled. That's who John Curry wanted. Tennessee fans revolted against that, and, well, it's been hell in Knoxville ever since. Kirk Herbstreit, though, in the midst of an interview on ESPNU Sirius XM satellite radio, he revealed something this week that I think is maybe going to be a little surprising to some Vols fans, that while none of them wanted Greg Schiano, apparently Peyton Manning was fine with Schiano. I don't know if this is revealing a confidence on Herbstreit's part or if Manning wants this out there, but here's what probably the most famous voice in all of college football said about Peyton Manning's viewpoint on the Tennessee coaching hire. This is kind of interesting here.
I talked with Peyton quite a bit before they made the hire. He was just kind of throwing names off of me, which a lot of people tend to do, and I was excited, and he was excited, and we kind of basically, in talking, over the phone, kind of high-fived and said, hey, congratulations, you got a great coach. And he's like, yeah, I talked to Urban Meyer, talked to Bill Belichick. We're really excited about this. We vetted him. Everything's clean, good. And I said, awesome, man, congrats. He's going to do a great job. He'll put a good staff together. And that was it. And that was before everything went down. And then everything went down. And then I was in the air and I was texting him, what in the world's happening here?
For me, this is, and I know I've got, I don't know, something I'm an axe to grind with Kirk Herbstreit right now, but this for me feels like more of the stuff about Herbstreit that I don't like. Hey, we vetted Greg Schiano. Big folks up north like Urban Meyer and Bill Belichick said he was fine. Media guy like me is telling you how to like this guy. Why can't you just take my word for it? The big boys are telling you how you're supposed to act on this. And Peyton Manning was in on this as well. This sort of feels like more of that sort of establishment college football folks telling rank-and-file Tennessee fans how they ought to feel about their own program. And I got to tell you, this for me is another example of Kirk Herbstreit being a big turnoff for me.
Yeah,
right now.
The blue check brigade.
Yeah,
like
the blue check brigade. That's who they are. All these guys are like, hey, how come you can't just like the coach we tell you to like? That's not how life works.
No, it's not. And we've been obviously on Tennessee fans' side ever since everything came down Sunday. They made their voice heard, and they got Greg Schiano ousted. The big thing I kind of took away from this sound bite was that Peyton was so excited about it. It's like we've talked all the time. Like, John Curry really doesn't have the pulse of the fans right now. And then you hear from a guy like Peyton Manning. It's like, oh yeah, we're really excited about him. He's going to put together a good staff.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I hate to be so cynical about this too. There's 1,000 rumors out there that Peyton Manning's going to go run the Cleveland Browns. You know why he's going to go run the Cleveland Browns? Because they're owned by Jimmy Haslam, the same Tennessee booster that handpicked Greg Schiano. Listen, I know Vols fans love Peyton Manning, but right there from Kirk Herbstreit, that lets you know he's just as much in the establishment as the rest of these guys.
It's possible.
He's on the side of the the closed door boardroom as much as the rest of these guys.
Yeah, it's very possible. I find it interesting that Peyton would have been excited about having Greg Schiano there. Obviously, he sees it from the coaching aspect. There's a lot of things out there that a lot of people can like about Greg Schiano. But you're talking about, Peyton, when he was in the NFL, didn't really like Greg Schiano. They had the thing about the diving at Eli's legs when they're kind of trying to kneel the ball in at Peyton Manning's legs. And that was Greg Schiano's big thing. Hey, we're not going to let anybody kneel across from us. We're going to submarine and try to take out knees. They were having an issue with that before, so I think it is interesting to hear Peyton Manning be like, yeah, we're excited about Greg Schiano.
Yeah, that's right. It feels somewhat hypocritical. By the way, Corey Tester in the comment section saying, okay, so where does Tennessee go now? With the Dave Doran thing out, is this a Chad Morris at SMU? We've heard about the idea, I think Football Scoop had this, of getting involved in the Kevin Sumlin conversation. Where's this? Is it T. Martin? Where is Tennessee going now?
I think you have to wait till Sunday. I know they want to get a coach in place, and unless it's Les Miles, unless you're going to call Les Miles right now and offer him the job, and you probably can get him for a pretty cheap price when you talk about head coaches out there right now, then I think you wait till Sunday. Wait till T. Martin's done with the Pac-12 championship game. Wait till wait till Jimbo Fisher's whole saga plays out with Texas A&M, and he can ouster himself and go to Texas A&M, or Kevin Sumlin to FSU, and all those jobs come open. I'm not sure who they turn to right now. It seems like, listen, how many names have we mentioned? Honestly, I think I can probably name 20 guys we've talked about possibly getting the job at Tennessee right now, and none of those have seemingly worked out. I think they have to either offer the job to Les Miles or somebody that's out of work right now, or they have to wait till Sunday to offer it to somebody who's playing this weekend.
Trenton Adams says Les Miles isn't interested in coaching at the moment. He's turned down calls from several teams. Trenton, I believe it's the opposite that's true. I think Les Miles would coach anywhere that'd give him a job. I mean, he interviewed for the Purdue job last year. If he's interviewing for Purdue, I think he's certainly willing to coach Tennessee. But the fact that his name is not coming up at all, to me, y'all, that's just got to be a huge red flag. And a lot of what we do as college football fans is read between the lines. You got to read between the lines on that. He's not coming up at all, and it's got to be for a reason.
Well, and my whole thing has been, why don't you call Les Miles or Kevin Sumlin? Well, it comes out that maybe Kevin Sumlin has a better job offer than,
we'll talk about
Tennessee's going to be able to do. I think Les Miles would be a good coach. We've talked about him doing kind of less with more. When you talk about the talent that he had down at LSU, probably didn't get a lot of things done. So why do you put him at a place like Tennessee? I think the ability is there for Les Miles to take this job as a head coach and find an offense coordinator and find a defense coordinator and get this team to play hard. That's been the problem for the last few years. You don't feel like they really play hard as a team. So maybe there is an opportunity for Les Miles to turn around his coaching career.
Very quick here. Christopher P. Shooter Smith in the comments section says, why don't we hear about Brent Venables, the Clemson defensive coordinator? I think that's a good question. I mean, Venables has done a great job at that Clemson defense. I mean, if you're going coordinator route, Venables, you could do a lot worse than that.
I agree. I agree. And that's kind of another reason I pointed to Sunday. You kind of hang it up right now and wait till one of these coordinators come open on Sunday after the championship games play. I think Venables will be a great hire.
All right, let's jump into our picks for this week. Of course, it's our MyBookie Best Bets. Not as many SEC games, obviously just the one involving this league, but a lot of conference championship games. And if you want to play with the pros play, think about mybookie.ag and you can get some action down. Let's fly through these kind of quick because we are just monumentally late here. Ohio State, Wisconsin. I'm going to take Ohio State to cover the spread. Not only do I think they win, I think they win handily against the undefeated Badgers here. I think that's an easy Buckeye win.
Yeah, I think this game's probably close at halftime, but if you're giving me 6.5, I have to think Ohio State wins by at least 7 points.
I am going to take Georgia, maybe no surprise there in the SEC championship game. Which direction are you going? You want to hold your pick?
I'm telling you, by like 1 point, I'm leaning Georgia right now.
Okay.
So it's going to be a very close game to me. I think it'll be very tight all up until the last 2 minutes.
I think Clemson really beats up on Miami on Saturday. I don't love going favorites on so many of these games like I did with the Big Ten and the ACC. But I got the favorite there in Clemson.
I don't think it's as lopsided as you do. I think both these teams sleptwalked through a couple of their games early this year. They both have one loss. I think that Miami is a little bit better than most teams give them credit for.
I think USC Stanford, good game. 4 points to me seems like a lot. I may go underdog there to cover the number, but I do believe that USC wins the game.
Yeah, I think USC wins this game going away. I like USC by about 10 points in this game. Stanford, to me, just doesn't have the speed and athleticism on their defensive side of the ball to be able to keep up.
I have to have some underdogs. I'm going to take TCU plus the 7.
This just is not the one to me. This is not the one. I think that they are running into a buzzsaw that is Baker Mayfield this weekend that claims his Heisman Trophy.
A lot of you on the comment section saying you can make better picks than we do. So the place for you to put your money where your mouth is with our friends at mybookie.ag. Money line, point spread, over, under, all the games this weekend. All the games this holiday season, be it basketball, hockey, whatever, you can bet on them right there at mybookie.ag. And you can already be a winner right from the start because your first deposit can be matched up to 50%, but you've got to use the promo code SEC Live. Use the promo code SEC Live. First deposit matched up to 50%. You play, you win, you get paid. It is as simple as that with MyBookie. Check them out online today at mybookie.ag. All right, let's move on to something here. Item number 6 in our AT&T SEC Country Life First and 10 list. I think it's a lot of fun, or at least it's fun for me because I wasn't involved. Somehow, someway, Jimbo Fisher still did his call-in show last night. With 1,000 rumors out there that Fisher's going to Texas A&M, he does his call-in show, and I have no idea why they think this is a good idea. he does it in like a hotel ballroom where people can ask him questions. Well, as you might imagine, finally somebody asked the question on everybody's mind, and, well, after that, things got a little ugly. Take a look at this.
Where's the loyalty to the program, Jimbo?
This guy gets the microphone yanked away from him. Watch what happens here. Now this moron in the FSU, watch him just push him down the thing. What is this guy? Who is this mall cop?
No. That guy had obviously been lied to. He was like, well, what question are you going to ask? Oh, I'm going to ask about Jimbo's winning percentage and how much it means to be bowl eligible. And then this guy lied to him, and he was probably like, you know what, man? You just lied to me. Get out of here.
What is he, a Secret Service agent?
Evidently, he had the right to push this guy out of the building. Nobody else was stopping the guy.
What you couldn't quite tell from that video is Gene Deckerhoff, who's the legendary Florida State broadcaster for a million years, the guy says, hey, where's the loyalty? Where's the loyalty? And he starts getting pushed out, and Deckerhoff, like a classic old school broadcaster, like, the loyalty's right here every Wednesday, haha.
It's just, to me, listen, I kind of put this tweet out earlier today. All these Florida State fans are like, Jimbo is forced to send to this corner. We have to act like this. We have to, question his loyalty. And I'm sitting there going, I think it's the other way around. I think the Florida State fans have caused Jimbo to be like, listen, maybe I'm better off going somewhere else.
This guy's Florida with a different job every single year.
Well, I mean, he hasn't really gotten the backing he feels like he deserves. He won a national title at Florida State, and they act like he's just another. They're like, yeah, you know what? Go ahead and get out of here.
So the report's out there that's exactly what's going to happen. Tomahawk Nation's Bud Elliott says that it could happen as soon as today that Fisher takes the Texas A&M job. You don't like Jimbo Fisher, which is fine.
No. I don't like him as much as you do. I think he's a good hire for Texas A&M. I just don't look at him as this monumental $10 million a year coach. I know he's won a national title, but when you look at what's happening to him this year, I don't know that he belongs in the top 5 right now.
So it's kind of an interesting situation there. A&M, I think, is going to get a good coach, but that's great drama coming from Tallahassee. And why get these SEC shows, coaches shows, let some folks come and ask some questions out of the audience? Mark Stoops does it, it's drama. Ed Orgeron does it, it's drama. Jimbo Fisher's taking some questions from the audience like the day before he leaves. He may even coach on Saturday, that's how bad it is down there. He's taking questions from the audience.
I think there's a time and a place when this can work. I mean, when you're undefeated and you're rolling and all the fans, like, I go to the Nick Saban show, they're like, they want to wish Nick Saban happy birthday in October. And also, it can work. Not in a week like this week where you have been bad and you're playing Louisiana Monroe on Championship Saturday.
AT&T, proud sponsor of SEC Country Live. AT&T, entertainment your way. Come out and join us, by the way, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time here in Atlanta, the night before the big game. We're going to be at the Hooters downtown for a very special broadcast of AT&T SEC Country Live. We're looking forward to seeing you there at 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you're an Auburn fan, if you're a Georgia fan, just an SEC fan that lives near Atlanta, love to have you see us there for that. Also, don't forget, if you're looking for some great food options to watch some of the games this weekend, Hooters got $5 off your to-go order of $25 or more when you order online, but you got to use the promo code SECFans for that. All right, let me get back to the SEC Championship here for item number 7, our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So one of the things that we know, and we just heard from a lot of Auburn fans a little earlier, they'll give Georgia some credit for playing a little closer this time. They still think their team's going to win. I understand where that comes from. If Georgia's going to be better, it's going to have a better performance from Jake Fromm. This week, when Kirby Smart met with the media, he talked about what he wants to see from his quarterback inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Here's Kirby.
It's really important that he plays with poise. He's under duress every game that I've seen. I mean, the quarterback position in this league, you're going to be under duress. It's one of those that he has to execute the plan, not try to be superhuman, allow his playmakers around him to help make plays and play within the system. Big part of this game is not making turnovers.
Is this moment going to be too big for Fromm? A battle against Jarrett Stidham, who I believe is the SEC's best quarterback, on a big stage, one game away from the college football playoff. Are you asking too much from a Georgia freshman in this spot, in this moment?
I think it's going to be extremely tough for him. I think when you look at the pass rush from Auburn right now, any quarterback going against them, I don't care who you are. I don't care if Bo Jackson's taking snaps for Georgia this weekend. It's going to be tough to go against that defensive front. I think that if you're Fromm right now, and more importantly, Jim Chaney, play within yourself. Let's not have these 10-step dropbacks where your offensive line has to protect for 10 seconds and you have to throw 50 yards down the field. Play within yourself. If it's a play action, get those dump offs quick and early. Get the ball out of Jake Fromm's hand and allow the athletes on the field. Jim Chaney, allow the athletes, DeAndre Swift, McCole Hardman, allow them to make the plays. Don't ask Jake Fromm to sit back there and burp the baby for 10 seconds to get rid of the ball. That's not who Jake Fromm is, and that's not how Georgia's going to win this weekend.
Scott Franklin says Kirby sounds scared. You can hear it in his voice. I don't know if that's true, but do you think privately he thinks they had a bad offensive game plan against Auburn, or is Holland as a pass rusher just that good? Do you think they would admit to themselves they were too conservative and didn't try to do enough that day? today?
Well, I've mentioned to you that I think they were kind of backed into a corner. I think that you have to dance with the girl that brought you. And I'm telling you right now, when they approach that game, they're undefeated, the number one team in the country. They have to go in running the football, or everybody's going to ask questions coming out. Why didn't you run the football? You've been running the football all year. Why didn't you do it? I just think that having that loss in their corner, having a chance to kind of reevaluate what they're doing offensively, gives them a time to take a breather and do some different things this time around. I'm telling you, I think that's the reason I think the game will be so close, is because Jim Chaney can say, you know what? This didn't work. Let's try something else in terms of what Jake Fromm can do.
Robin Melton Hurst says Georgia's coming for revenge. A lot of Dog fans believe that. A lot of Dog fans hope that's true. Let me move on here to item number 8 on our AT&T SEC Country Life First and 10 list. And this is probably not that important, but I do think it proves something that I was saying a couple weeks ago. So let's talk about this here for a moment, if you don't mind. I was a big believer all along that A, Florida was never hiring Chip Kelly, and B, the reason, one of the pieces of evidence that proved it was true was I didn't think Steve Spurrier ever wanted Chip Kelly. Well, Spurrier is now on the record about his thoughts about Chip Kelly, and you can make a case this is just a guy towing the company line after Dan Mullen was hired, but somehow I don't quite think that's true. Spurrier's on with Mark Packer, the ESPNU Sirius XM radio host. They're talking about the Florida situation, and I think that Spurrier, in pretty blunt terms, describes why he doesn't think Chip Kelly would have worked in the SEC.
I think Chip Kelly is a better fit at UCLA than he would have been here. This is, this is the South. This is SEC country. Dan's been down here about the last 13, 14 years or so forth. And I think it's just helpful to have guys that know the area, know the people, know sort of what's going on, who you got to beat, and this, that, and the other. And it's probably best Chip Kelly's out on the West Coast.
I mean, I think Spurrier's being honest right there. Now, he's got every reason in the world to sort of, he's an ambassador for Florida, talk about why they have a good coach now, why Kelly wouldn't have been a good coach. But he never said anything before Kelly, before Dan Mullen was hired. We thought, they're flying planes up to New Hampshire. He never said a word. That to me was a huge tell that this was all a ruse. All a ruse by Florida.
I have to agree with you. And I think there is a little bit of element where you fall back in Dan Mullen. Listen, on the flip side, if Chip Kelly had been hired by Florida, I don't think you would have heard Steve Spurrier come out and say, you know what, I don't like the hire at all. But I do think there's this feeling, and all the reports came out and said Steve Spurrier favored Scott Frost for the job. That the administration wanted Chip Kelly, and Steve Spurrier was like, no, I want Scott Frost. So maybe that comes out now that it's true. And in hindsight, I don't really blame Steve Spurrier. You and I talked a bunch about, is Chip Kelly the guy you want to be the face of their program? I thought it would be a home run hire. It turns out they didn't get him. They landed a heck of a third place hire when you talk about Dan Mullen. And I think that Steve Spurrier was being Steve Spurrier's never hid his emotions. It's specifically in interviews like this, and I don't think he would start now. I think he's telling the truth.
But I'm going to disagree with one thing you said there. Because of everything I just said, I don't believe Mullen was actually the third place hire. I believe that there was, and we don't know for sure that what they did, but I believe there was a lot of, Mullen had leverage. He had other jobs he could take. He'd take the Tennessee job. He's got an agent that tries to get as much money. I believe that whatever went on with Chip Kelly for sure, and maybe whatever went on with Scott Frost, those were all leverage plays to get a better negotiating position against Dan Mullen.
It's a possibility. I just think that when you look at Scott Frost and Chip Kelly, how many times have we talked about where there's smoke, they're fired? Those names were around that program for a month. We talk about when they moved on to Jim McElwain. I have to think they at least vetted both of those guys, looked into both of them before they looked into Dan Mullen. I think that Dan Mullen, they were like, you know what, he's going to finish his season at Mississippi State. He's got to play the Egg Bowl, and then we'll figure out what he's about. And that just happened to be the guy that was in place at the right time.
Here's the thing I'll say. Had Florida hired Chip Kelly, he would not have hit the ground running the way that Dan Mullen has. Now, I don't believe Justin Fields is going to Florida, but Chip Kelly would not be sitting in Justin Fields' house this week. It takes an SEC-type guy to kind of even get that door open to him on a Tuesday night. Chip Kelly's not doing that. We'll show you a video later on of Dan Mullen visiting with Damian Pierce, the running back in Bainbridge. Chip Kelly's not doing that. Chip Kelly would not have his feet on the ground fast enough. He just wasn't. There is a fast start that Mullen's kind of gotten off to, a perception about the way the program's growing that I don't think Chip Kelly would have been able to do.
Yeah, I think it's understandable to ask questions about him as a recruiter. There was questions about him as a recruiter at Oregon. There were questions about him going into Florida. Could he recruit? I think that Chip Kelly had enough brand name recognition when you talk about Chip Kelly being the hottest name on the market that he could have gotten most doors open. I think that's kind of the reaction. That's why you go after the big name most years. You try to get a guy in place. Now, does he fit as an SEC recruiter? I think it's very fair to ask those questions. I think Dan Mullen definitely fits into that spot in terms of recruiting better than Chip Kelly would have.
Jeff Crawford says, given the pre-existing relationship between Strickland and Mullen, he references back to the time at Mississippi State. How do we know that conversation hasn't been going on a long time under the radar? There's a chance that's true. There's also a chance that maybe Strickland and Mullen didn't always get along really well, but who knows how much that's even really true.
Yeah, I mean, we can kick tires on that all we want to. We can talk about the difference. Scott Strickland and who was he talking to. The problem is we'll probably never know the truth. You know, unless it comes out and somebody does a tell-all a few years from now, we'll probably never know who was in front of Dan Mullen. And if they do have any bad blood, all I know is the other day we saw Megan Mullen, who had asked questions about Gainville, getting off the plane and hugging Scott Strickland like it was a long-lost cousin. So whatever it was, whatever the problem was, it seems to be A-OK now.
Item number 9 on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10 list. So a lot of the Tennessee fans who check in with us in the program every day, one question they keep asking is this Tennessee search stretches on without a coach? Where's Lane Kiffin? Why isn't Lane Kiffin getting involved here? At any point in time, we're going to hear from Lane Kiffin. Well, Kiffin did an interview this week, and he was asked, if you were given an opportunity at the Tennessee job, would you accept it? And Kiffin, boy, he started going into some details here. Listen to this.
I don't live in a world of what ifs. So, as usual, as you guys probably know, when jobs open, agents call athletic directors and they basically say, okay, here's the 5-6 guys that I have that I think would be a good fit, whatever. And so I guess when Jimmy called him and brought up 5-6 names, and I guess Curry liked some of them, Shiano, some other ones, and said that he wasn't interested in me. So I don't live in worlds of what if. So I've not thought about it once since that was 2 weeks ago.
So I sort of understand why John Curry would not be interested in Lane Kiffin. I mean, it's weird to me that the Tennessee fans are so willing to forgive Kiffin and all this, because all of the problems that Tennessee has sort of date back to him leaving Tennessee for USC. Because remember, you hire a better coach than Derek Dooley if there weren't all those lame duck assistants with their multi-year contracts still around there. I mean, so a lot of this stuff that Tennessee's got going on, a lot of the problems can be pointed back to Lane Kiffin. I can sort of understand why John Curry, based on what he's hearing from boosters who actually write these checks, are saying we actually don't want to go back down that road again. Kiffin's entertaining, but I can understand why Tennessee wouldn't want to hire him again.
Well, I can too, but I can also see it from the other side of things, where right now you're kind of backed into a corner where you need a coach. And listen, for everything bad you can say about Lane Kiffin and his time at, and we've talked to Mike Griffith a ton of times on the show about how Lane Kiffin set this program back, but guess what? He got him bowl eligible, and then he bolted for what he still says was his dream job in being the USC head coach. So you can fault him for a lot of things. You can date it back to him, but I don't know if anybody would react differently than to what happened with Lane Kiffin. I think he'd be a good coaching hire for somebody. I think he's a guy that potentially has grown up in some of these circumstances. You'd have to say, hey, Lane, you're going to have to lay off the Twitter. You're going to have to promise us that you're going to be around here for a while if we do go in and hire you. But that's the position that Tennessee's in right now. They've got to find a guy that is a talented coach to take over this program. And guess what? Lane Kiffin's a talented coach.
I am really surprised at Tennessee fans. I'm going to let y'all have your say on this. Eddie Lael saying he left for his dream job. Corey Tester saying he left for his dream job. Basically the theme that you're getting here from one of these comments is, hey, who could fault you for taking your dream job? Now he's going to come back and clean up the mess. But I feel like this Tennessee fan's not holding their own program in enough esteem. I'm not saying it's on par with the USC, especially at that time. USC had, won national championships recently. But it's not that far down the trough. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a degree to which Tennessee fans need to reestablish their own pride in their own program, and maybe the Tennessee boosters need to do the same thing here.
That's possible. I think that's just a tough ask at this point when you look at everything that's happened for not only the last couple of weeks, but the last couple of years. Guess what? Tennessee fans, more than anything, maybe more than even having pride right now, they want to win football games. That's what gets you to the top of the heap. That's what gets your program back to respectability. If Lane Kiffin can do that, guess what? It's kiss and make up time in Knoxville.
All right, item number 10 on our AT&T SEC Country Live First and 10. So you can tell me if I'm a jerk for this, but Todd Grantham, the Mississippi State defensive coordinator, sort of pens a letter on his way out of Starkville, Mississippi, on his way to Gainesville to become the new defensive coordinator. And I don't know. I mean, do you expect more of this from a coach? I think we have this that we can show to you here. It's a long message, but if you start looking through here, this thing's like riddled with typos. Like he's got capital letters in here for no reason. He uses the wrong there at one point. I have no idea why he's capitalizing total defense. That's not a proper noun. I mean, like on and on he goes. This is like something written by like a fourth grader. I mean, Can you not get somebody to proofread this for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me too. Listen, I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I think it was well worded. I don't know if I've ever seen a goodbye letter written from an assistant coach at a program like Mississippi State after 1 year.
Yeah, this is not Mickey Andrews leaving Florida State after 4 decades. This guy was here for 12 months.
But I think, I think it also gives him a chance to kind of go back to his players, say thank you to his players, because they did do a heck of a job turning that defense around. He mentions it there in the post. The grammar police are going to be out, and that's fine.
Well, that's what Esteban Estevez is already saying, that I'm being grammar police on this.
Yeah, I see that, but I think the message was well intended.
But it just sort of reminds you, these Florida fans, you should be happy about Dan Mullen, but be careful what you're asking for.
I knew that was going to come out.
I'm just telling you, just be careful. I mean, your own legend, Steve Spurrier, used to mock Todd Grantham for not being able to stop the read option, everything else.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna hate Grantham. I'm just telling you right now.
I think he'll fit in well down there. Listen, coaches can change; they get better. I think Grantham's I think Grantham going along with Dan Mullen. And listen, Mississippi State wanted to keep him. It's not like this guy wasn't wanted around the league. There's way worse decisions to make on defense court.
That's the endorsement of Todd Grantham to Florida fans. Coaches can change; they get better.
Yeah,
there you go. That's the endorsement right there.
Yeah.
Hey, come out and see us. We're going to be at Hooters Friday night, tomorrow night. Hooters in Peachtree Street, downtown Atlanta. 7 p.m. We've also got a great champion of life. We'll tell you about that coming up in a moment. Before that, though, let me also do our AT&T look ahead here and think about Sunday. Now, you and I are going to be back on the SEC Country Facebook page on Sunday at noon. It's our final Path to Playoff show presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. And on that program, we're going to be able to say from Grapevine, Texas, who those top 4 teams are after all those college football playoff games this weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It could be a really good day maybe for either one of us.
Alabama could be in, Georgia could be in as well.
Or it could be a really bad day for everybody all around. And
it'll be a great conversation.
It's going to be a great conversation either way. I hope you guys will tune in and just at least hang out with us. If you're an Auburn fan, show up and make fun of both of us.
That's great.
I'll swallow my pride on air.
Yeah, a lot of SEC fans, whoever you cheer for, you can come on by and see us on Friday night, and then on Sunday we do our Path to Playoff show there. All right, so we close the show each and every day the same way, much like the former Tennessee coach Butch Jones was looking for champions of life. Well, we're still looking for him here on our program. Today, the champion of life is the new Florida coach Dan Mullen, because we talked earlier about his recruiting trip to see 5-star quarterback Justin Fields. He also checked in on a Florida commit, the running back Damian Pierce from Bainbridge, Georgia. And well, with Mullen there, decided to get in on some action and just sort of show just how down-to-earth he is. He's got the khaki pants on, but he's also rocking, these are Air Jordan tennis shoes, is that right? These are Jordan shoes? Jordans. He's got the Jordans on and playing a little basketball with some of Pierce's family. Take a look here at Dan Mullen as he tries to show off some of his game here.
Yeah. Hey, we got Dan Mullen hooping in the games, man. Dion Martavis?
Yeah, so you see Mullen there in the middle dribbling. Mullen's got the dribble here. He's got the handle.
Oh, yeah.
Loses the ball. Now he's going to come back and try to give you the jump shot. That clangs off.
I love it, man. I got to say, I love it.
Mullen's going to take another shot here. Mullen takes another shot. He misses that one, too. But nonetheless, this is Mullen. He's really going extra mile for recruiting here.
I'm telling you right now, I'm a Florida fan. I'm excited about this. This is the new day and age of recruiting, in my opinion. You got to have the relaxed guys willing to mix it up and be kind of buddy-buddy with these recruits. Only until they get on campus that you start really telling them how bad they are.
Yeah, he's a better recruiter than Jim McElwain already. Jim McElwain's not shooting baskets with Damian Pierce almost for sure. Hey, can we throw the Hooters graphic on the screen one more time? Remind folks that we're going to be with you tomorrow night. Normally we say goodbye to you on the weekend here for Thursday, but we got a special AT&T SEC Country Live tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Hooters, downtown Atlanta, Peachtree Street. Mike and I are excited about seeing you there for that. We want to shake your hand and say thanks for watching AT&T SEC Country Live. And for those of you that can't be with us in Atlanta, enjoy the games on Saturday. We'll talk to you on Facebook Live tomorrow evening and then back again on Monday as we talk about which SEC team or teams made the playoff. We'll see you then.